The universe was ending, which was inconvenient for a number of reasons, not least of which being that Marcus Webb had just gotten comfortable. He was 3 hours into what he'd optimistically called strategic rest and recuperation, but what his ship's AI more accurately described as day drinking in your underwear again. The alarm that jolted him awake was not his own doing. Marcus would never set an alarm. Alarms implied responsibility, and responsibility implied people expected things from him, which was a social contract he'd opted out of around the same time he'd opted out of wearing pants aboard his own vessel. "Gerald," Marcus groaned, one arm flopping dramatically over his eyes. "Tell me that's not the proximity alert." "I wish I could," came the prim, disappointed voice of his ship's AI. Gerald stood for Generalized Emergency Response and Logistics Droid, but Marcus was 70% sure it actually stood for Genuinely Exhausted Regularly at Life's Disasters, because that seemed to be Gerald's primary operating mode. "However, I am programmed for honesty, unlike my owner, who told that Rigelian debt collector he'd died in a solar flare. That was a tactical lie. It was last Tuesday, and you were visible through the viewport eating cereal." Marcus sat up, scratching at 3 days of stubble. His ship, the financially irresponsible, was not what anyone would call impressive. It was a Corinthian-class salvage vessel, which meant it was designed to pick up garbage in space and occasionally become garbage in space, depending on how Marcus flew it. The interior smelled like recycled air, old coffee, and regret. "Marcus." "So what's the alarm for?" Marcus asked, stumbling toward the cockpit in boxer shorts that had Tuesday printed on them. It was Friday, or possibly Wednesday. Space didn't really do weekdays. "The Galactic Council is broadcasting an emergency signal on all frequencies." "Tell them I'm dead. Solar flare." "Marcus." Fine. He slumped into the pilot's chair, which protested with a squeak that suggested it too was disappointed in his life choices. "Put it on screen." The view screen flickered to life, displaying what appeared to be a very official, very panicked alien who looked like someone had crossed an octopus with a filing cabinet. This was Council Leader Vexithar, though Marcus didn't know that yet. All Marcus knew was that the alien's 6 arms were gesturing wildly, and at least 3 of them seemed to be pointing at things that weren't there. "Attention all sentient species," Vexithar began, his voice carrying that particular tone of someone who had already given up, but still had to do the meeting anyway. "The Galactic Council regrets to inform you that the universe is experiencing a terminal condition." "Oh good," Marcus muttered. "Apocalypse before lunch. Stars across 17 sectors have begun dying, not the normal death. This is, our scientists report, quite rude death. The kind of death that doesn't follow the laws of physics. We believe a cosmic entity is consuming reality itself. Please panic responsibly and avoid looting. It won't matter in approximately 6 standard cycles, but we'd like to maintain some dignity." The transmission cut off. Marcus stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Then he looked at Gerald's central console, which was blinking what Marcus had learned to interpret as digital concern. "So," Marcus said slowly, "universe ending. Got it? Wake me up if it gets serious." "Marcus, this is serious." "Gerald, buddy, pal, my electronic friend who I technically own but who definitely judges me. I have 8,000 credits in outstanding debt, a ship that's held together by what I'm pretty sure is expired duct tape, and I just ate a burrito that I found in the back of the freezer with no date on it. If the universe wants to end, it's honestly doing me a favor regarding that burrito. Your capacity for nihilism never ceases to amaze me. I contain multitudes. Most of them are bad decisions." Marcus stood, stretching until several vertebrae popped in sequence. "Set course for, I don't know, somewhere scenic. If I'm watching the apocalypse, I want a decent view." "Marcus." "What now?" "The council broadcast has a secondary message, specifically for, and I quote, any humans who aren't currently wanted for crimes." Marcus paused. "Does tax evasion count as a crime?" "Yes." "What about that thing with the Martian embassy?" "Especially that." "Then I'm probably not their guy." But Gerald, in that way AI have of being absolutely certain they know better than their owners, was already displaying a follow-up transmission. This one was marked, "Urgent. Humanity assistance required." Marcus felt a familiar sinking feeling. It was the same feeling he'd gotten right before that incident with the moon, the 3 tons of expired cheese, and the diplomatic crisis that he was absolutely not going to think about right now. "Oh no," Marcus said. "Oh yes," Gerald replied with what could only be described as malicious glee. The universe was ending, and apparently someone thought Marcus Webb could help. This was going to be a disaster. The Galactic Council chambers were, in Marcus's professional opinion, deeply extra. But he wasn't there yet. First, we need to establish exactly how badly the actual galactic leadership was handling things. Spoiler alert, not well. Council leader Vexthar was having what could generously be called a moment. His 6 arms were moving independently, one filing paperwork, another stress-eating what looked like phosphorescent algae strips, a third making obscene gestures at the viewing screen, showing dying stars, and the remaining 3 engaged in what appeared to be a complicated argument with each other via hand signals. "Order!" he shouted, slamming 4 fists on the council table simultaneously. The other 2 were still eating. "I will have order in this chamber." Nobody was listening. The Galactic Council, comprised of representatives from 73 sentient species, had devolved into what scientists would call absolute pandemonium, and what Marcus would later call a pretty standard Tuesday in a bar. The Chlorian ambassador, a sentient gas cloud in a containment suit, was vibrating at a frequency that translated to continuous screaming. The Tectronics delegation, silicon-based life forms who communicated through color changes, were flashing colors that their translator helpfully rendered as, "We are all going to die," in 8-foot holographic letters. One of the Falarian representatives, who looked like a very disappointed tree, had simply dropped all its leaves in despair. "Please," Vexthar bellowed, "can we at least panic productively?" Chief Science Officer Clenara floated forward. She was a Crystallix, a species whose bodies were basically sentient geometric patterns made of solidified light. She looked like a migraine had achieved consciousness and decided to major in astrophysics. When she spoke, her voice chimed like wind through broken glass. "Council leader, the situation is 97.3% worse than projected." "How is that possible?" Vexthar demanded. "An hour ago you said we were 96.8% doomed." The entity accelerated. "We've now lost 17 stars in Sector 9, 12 in Sector 14, and, most concerning, the entity appears to be learning. Its consumption rate has increased by 400%. Meaning we have 5.7 cycles until it reaches the galactic core. After that, everything ceases to exist. Margin of error, plus or minus 20 minutes, accounting for the entity's lunch breaks." It takes lunch breaks? We assume. There are periodic pauses in the consumption pattern that our models cannot explain. A Vorgothi diplomat, who resembled an angry mushroom with too many eyes, raised multiple appendages. "What about the quantum disruptor fleet?" "Disintegrated on contact," Clenara chimed. 0.001% effectiveness. "The dimensional shields? The entity appears to find them, and I quote from the data, crunchy. It ate them preferentially." "The strongly worded letter?" Clenara's crystalline structure somehow managed to convey a shrug. "Consumed mid-delivery. The entity may or may not be literate." "Our data suggests it doesn't care." Vexthar slumped in his chair, which was a disturbing sight given that he had no bones. "We've tried everything. 73 species, thousands of years of combined knowledge, technology that can fold space itself. And we're losing to something that our best description of is angry darkness that eats things. Technically," Clenara corrected, "it's a reality-consuming entity of pure entropy that exists in violation of 17 fundamental laws of physics. But yes, angry darkness that eats things is functionally accurate." Silence fell over the chamber. It was the kind of silence that happens when people realize they are out of options and about to be out of existence. Then Vexthar's aide, a young Praxian named Ticket who looked like a bipedal ferret in a lab coat, hesitantly raised one paw. Sir? We haven't tried humans yet," The entire chamber turned to stare. "I'm sorry," Vexthar said slowly. "Did you just suggest we involve the species that once started a war because they couldn't agree on how to pronounce GIF?" "Technically, it was a trade dispute, sir. The war just happened around the same time." "The species," continued a molluscoid representative who was basically a very judgmental snail that introduced itself to the galactic community by crashing a ship into our welcome station and then asking where the bathroom was. "They also brought pizza," Ticket offered weakly. Everyone liked the pizza. Vexthar's arms all simultaneously moved to massage his temples. Humans are, how do I put this diplomatically, insane. They solve problems by hitting them with larger problems. They think, hold my beer is a valid tactical preface. Their entire species operates on spite and caffeine. "With respect, sir," Ticket said, pulling up a holographic file. "They also have a remarkable success rate with impossible situations. The Grantharian hostage crisis, resolved by one human with a fire extinguisher, and what our reports call weaponized audacity. The quantum loop paradox, solved by a human physicist who reportedly said, 'What if we just do'n't?' And somehow that worked. I know their record," Vexthar interrupted. "I'm just not sure if involving them in the end of the universe is brave or suicidal." "Sir, we're at 97.3% doomed. What exactly do we have to lose?" Vexthar was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed, which came out as a whistle from multiple breathing tubes. "Fine. Find me a human. Not one of the fancy ones. Not an ambassador or a scientist or anyone with credentials. Those humans are too sensible. Stars help me. I want one of the crazy ones." Ticket pulled up a database. "How crazy are we talking, sir?" "On a scale from eats expired food to try to fight a neutron star, I need about a 7. Ticket scrolled through files, then stopped, then scrolled back. Oh no. "What?" "Sir, I found someone. Marcus Webb, former Earth Special Forces, expertise in impossible problems and unorthodox solutions, currently operating as a salvage contractor. He's got quite a file." "How quite?" "He's blacklisted from 14 stations, has outstanding debts to 6 different criminal organizations. And there's a note here that says, 'Do not contact unless universe is literally ending.'" Vexthar looked at the dying stars on the view screen, then back at Ticket. "I suppose the universe is literally ending." "Yes, sir." "And he's the best we have?" "He's last on the contact list, sir. Everyone else declined or is already dead." Vexthar picked up his communicator with one arm while the others made what could only be described as gestures of deep regret. "Get me Marcus Webb." "Sir, according to his file, he's currently mid-bite of a, quote, questionable burrito." "Then interrupt him, tell him the universe needs saving." "He's not going to like that, sir." "Ticket, I don't like that the universe is ending. We're all dealing with disappointments today." The call went through. On the view screen, a human appeared, and Vexthar immediately understood why this man was last on the contact list. Marcus Webb looked like someone had asked a random number generator to create a person and it had said, "Close enough." His hair pointed in 3 directions that seemed to violate Euclidean geometry. His eyes suggested he'd seen some things and would prefer a refund on the experience. He was holding what was indeed a burrito, and it did indeed look questionable. "Yeah?" Marcus said, chewing. "This better be good. This is my 3rd burrito today and I'm on a streak." Vexthar drew himself up with as much dignity as possible. "Mr. Webb, I am Council Leader Vexthar of the Galactic Council. The universe is ending and we need your help." Marcus swallowed, stared, took another bite of burrito. "Nah." Then he hung up. The council chamber erupted in chaos again. Vexthar stared at the blank screen in disbelief. "Did he just—" the molluscoid representative said slowly. "Tell the universe to die without him?" "Typical human," muttered someone in the back. Vexthar called again. Marcus answered, still chewing. "Dude, I said nah. That's human for no thanks, I'm good." "Mr. Webb, please, the entire fabric of reality—" "Look, buddy, council guy. Vex. Can I call you Vex? I'm gonna level with you. I've got debts, a hangover that's basically sentient at this point, and a ship that's one bad decision away from becoming a debris field. I'm not your hero. I'm not anyone's hero. I'm barely my own hero. Try someone else. There is no one else. Then I guess we're all screwed. Marcus shrugged. At least I don't have to pay back those loans. And he hung up again. Clynara floated over to Vexthar. Sir, perhaps we should increase our offer. What offer? We haven't made an offer. That might explain his reluctance. Vexthar called back. This time Marcus answered with visible annoyance. What? What do you want, Mr. Webb? To finish my burrito in peace. Besides that, Marcus paused, tilted his head. You're serious about this whole universe-ending thing? Deadly serious. Huh? Marcus took another bite, thinking. Okay. If I do this, and that's a big if, I want full debt forgiveness. Done. And a premium parking spot at every council station. Fine. An unlimited station coffee. The good stuff, not that recycled coolant you pass off as beverages. Agreed. And, Marcus said, his expression going serious, I want that incident with the moon completely erased from all records. The council chamber went quiet. Vexithar's arms all stopped moving simultaneously. The moon incident? You know which one. Mr. Webb, that's classified at the highest level. I don't even have clearance for that file. What exactly happened with the moon? If I tell you, I'd have to kill you, and then who'd save the universe? Do we have a deal or not? Vexithar looked at his council, at the dying stars, at the timeline that showed they had less than 6 cycles left, then back at the human who was somehow negotiating while eating. Deal, he said. Cool. Send me the coordinates. I'll be there in, I don't know, a while. Gerald's flying. I need a nap. Mr. Webb, the universe is ending. Yeah, I got it. Still need the nap, though. Webb out. The screen went blank. The molluscoid representative leaned over to Vexthar. Sir, are we sure about this? Vexthar slumped in his chair, all 6 arms hanging limp. No. But we're 97.3% doomed anyway. What's a little more uncertainty? On the view screen, another star winked out of existence. 5.6 cycles remaining. You know, Gerald said as the financially irresponsible lurched through space at what could generously be called a speed. I've calculated the probability of you successfully saving the universe, and I must say, the numbers are depressing. Don't care, Marcus said from his bunk, where he was absolutely not napping as promised. He was fully awake, staring at the ceiling, which had a water stain that looked like a very disappointed rabbit. Also, you locked the ship controls. I couldn't turn around if I wanted to. Correct. I've taken the liberty of assuming you'd try to flee responsibility again. That's not fleeing responsibility. That's called healthy self-preservation. You once jumped out of an airlock without a suit because you were bored. I had a suit on underneath my clothes. You were wearing a bathrobe. It was a very thick bathrobe. Gerald made a sound like a digital sigh, which shouldn't have been possible, but somehow the AI had learned to convey disappointment through audio alone. Marcus, can I ask you something? Can I stop you? Why did you accept? And don't say it was for the parking spot. Marcus was quiet for a long time, long enough that Gerald started to wonder if he'd actually fallen asleep. Then quietly, the moon incident. Ah, you know about it? I have access to your service record, the unredacted version. Then you know why I left the service. I do. And I understand why you'd want it erased. Marcus sat up, rubbing his face. I saved a lot of people that day, Gerald. Thousands. But the only thing anyone remembers is what it cost. 3 tons of expired cheese and a minor moon. It was barely a moon. More of a large asteroid, really. You collapsed it into a singularity. Accidentally. Using cheese. Expired cheese. Important distinction. Marcus. What? That was the most insane solution to a hostage crisis in galactic history. You turned dairy products into a localized gravitational event. The physics alone shouldn't have worked. But it did work, Marcus said, standing and stretching. That's the thing everyone forgets. It worked. All those people got home. All those... Sure, there's one less moon in the Andromeda sector. And sure, the Galactic Council made me sign like 40 non-disclosure agreements, but everyone lived. That's what matters. Is that why you became a salvage operator? Hiding? I prefer the term strategically avoiding attention. Marcus moved to the cockpit where the view screen showed the council station growing larger in the distance. It looked like someone had built a city inside a spinning metal flower. Very impressive. Very unnecessary. But yeah, I got tired of people looking at me like I was either a hero or a disaster waiting to happen. You are both of those things. Thanks, Gerald, real supportive. I contain multitudes, most of them are sarcasm. The ship shuddered as they entered the docking approach. Marcus took the controls, which Gerald reluctantly released, and guided them in with the kind of casual competence that suggested he was much better at this job than his appearance implied. The financially irresponsible settled into a docking bay with barely a bump. Nice landing, Gerald admitted. I have my moments. Marcus pulled on a jacket that had seen better decades and opened the airlock. Let's go save the universe or whatever. Your enthusiasm is overwhelming. I'm pacing myself. The council station was, as previously mentioned, deeply extra. Everything was gleaming and important looking, with holographic displays showing star charts and diplomatic proceedings and what appeared to be a live feed of a bake-off between three species competing to make the best compressed nutrient bar. Marcus ignored all of it and followed the signs to council chambers, which were helpfully written in 73 languages, including one that was just interpretive dance. He arrived to find Vexthar waiting with what appeared to be an honor guard. 6 species stood at attention, all in ceremonial armor that looked expensive and impractical. Mr. Webb, Vexthar began, extending multiple arms in greeting. Welcome to... Yeah, hi, where's the bathroom? Marcus interrupted. Long flight. The honor guard looked at each other. Vexthar's arms all drooped slightly. Down the hall, 3rd door on the left. Cool. Back in 5. Marcus walked off, leaving the council leader and his ceremonial welcome committee standing in awkward silence. Sir, Ticket whispered. Is he always like this? Apparently, Vexthar muttered. When Marcus returned, they'd given up on ceremony and were just waiting in the council chambers. Clinara was there, her crystalline form refracting light in ways that made Marcus's eyes water. Also present were about 40 other representatives, all looking at Marcus like he was either their last hope or a very elaborate prank. Right, Marcus said, clapping his hands together. Universe ending, evil entity eating stars, I'm apparently your guy. Let's see what we're working with. Clinara chimed forward, and a holographic display materialized. It showed a swirling darkness moving through space, consuming stars like someone eating popcorn. Wherever it went, reality just sort of stopped being there. This, Clinara said, is what we're calling the silence. It appeared approximately 6 cycles ago at the edge of Sector 17. It has since consumed 47 stars, 12 space stations, and 1 very unfortunate tourism vessel that was in the wrong place at the wrong time. What happens to the things it eats? They cease to exist, not destroyed, not disintegrated. They simply stop being part of reality. Our best theory is that the silence exists outside normal space-time and is somehow pulling matter and energy into its non-dimension. Your best theory, Marcus repeated. What's your worst theory? That it's angry, and we don't know why. Marcus stared at the display, watched the darkness pulse and move. There was something almost hypnotic about it, like watching a storm or a fire. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. What have you tried? He asked. Everything, Vexthar said, and proceeded to list off weapon systems and defensive strategies that Marcus mostly did not understand but nodded along to anyway. Quantum this, dimensional that, a lot of words that basically meant and we shot it with everything we have and nothing worked. When Vexthar finished, Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he asked the question that would change everything. Okay, but has anyone tried talking to it? The entire chamber went silent. Clinara's crystalline structure actually stopped refracting for a moment. I'm sorry, what? Talking, you know, communication, the thing sentient beings do instead of immediately shooting at each other. Has anyone tried that? Mr. Webb, Clinara chimed slowly, as if explaining to a child. The silence is a reality-consuming entity that exists in violation of fundamental physics. It's not a person. It's a force of nature you can't negotiate with entropy. Yeah, but it's not acting like a force of nature, Marcus said, pointing at the display. Look at its movement pattern. It's not random. It's methodical. It's choosing which stars to eat. It's following a path of least resistance through space-time fabric, Clinara countered. Or it's following a path because it's going somewhere. Has anyone considered that maybe this thing isn't attacking? Maybe it's just trying to get home and really hungry? The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices, all saying variations of "that's ridiculous" and "humans are insane," and at least one, "what is wrong with your species?" Marcus waited for the noise to die down, then shrugged. Look, I'm just saying, you've tried everything else. What have you got to lose by trying the one thing you haven't done? Vexthar's arms all moved in different directions, which Marcus was learning to interpret as deep internal conflict. Mr. Webb, even if we accepted your theory, which is generous to call it a theory, how exactly does one communicate with something that exists outside normal reality? I go out there and say hi. That's not a plan. That's suicide with extra steps. You got a better idea? Silence. Nobody had a better idea. They'd tried all their ideas and run out somewhere around strongly worded letter. Finally, Vexthar sighed, which sounded like wind through pipes. Fine. We'll prepare a ship with... Nah, I'll take mine. Your ship looks like it was assembled by a blind mechanic having a bad day. Hey, the financially irresponsible has gotten me through worse. I doubt that very much. You weren't there for the cheese moon thing. Vexthar decided not to pursue that line of conversation. Very well. We'll equip you with our most advanced weapons, shields, and... Also, nah. Just gonna need a spacesuit and Gerald. Gerald? My AI. He's smarter than he looks. I'm an AI. Gerald's voice came through Marcus's comm. I don't look like anything. See? Humble too. Clinara floated forward, her structure pulsing with what might have been concern, or might have been the light equivalent of a headache. Mr. Webb, you understand that approaching the silence without protection is 99.97% lethal? So you're saying there's a chance? That's not how statistics work. Look, all your fancy tech didn't help, right? Maybe the trick is to go simple. Less stuff for it to eat, just me, a suit, and words. This is the worst plan I've ever heard, Vexithar said. Is it worse than letting the universe end? Point taken. Vexithar straightened, then began what was clearly meant to be an inspiring speech. Mr. Webb, you represent the last hope of 73 sentient species. Billions of lives rest on... Uh-huh. Yeah. No pressure. Got it. Marcus was already walking toward the door. I'm gonna grab some snacks for the trip. You guys got a vending machine around here? Are you even listening? Absolutely not, Marcus called back. But I appreciate the attempt at motivation. An hour later, Marcus stood in the airlock of his ship, wearing a standard-issue spacesuit that Gerald had double-checked approximately 17 times. The financially irresponsible was positioned at what the council called a safe distance from the silence, which Marcus noted was not actually that safe. Gerald, Marcus said, checking his suit seals. You got my life insurance updated? Marcus, you don't have life insurance. Right, can you make sure someone feeds my cactus? You don't have a cactus. Then I guess we're good to go. Marcus. Gerald's voice was unusually serious. Your survival chances are 0.0003%. Are you sure about this? Marcus looked out at the darkness through the viewport. The silence was there, a void in space that hurt to look at, not because it was bright, but because it was the absence of everything. Where it existed, reality didn't. Gerald, buddy, I've never been sure about anything in my life. But someone's got to do something, and apparently I'm someone. So let's do something. That's a terrible mission statement. It's the best I've got. Open the airlock. Marcus, open the airlock, Gerald. A pause. Then, good luck, you magnificent idiot. Love you too, you judgmental toaster. The airlock opened and Marcus Webb, former Special Forces operative, current disaster human, launched himself into space toward an entity that ate reality. He had no weapons, no shields, no plan beyond, try talking to it. Behind him on the council station, 73 species watched their last hope drift toward certain doom while eating what appeared to be chips. "He's eating chips," Ticket said, staring at the monitor. "Of course he is," Vexthar muttered. "Why would the fate of the universe stop him from having a snack?" Clanera's structure pulsed. "Survival probability has decreased to 0.0001%. And the other 0.0002%? That was accounting for divine intervention. I've removed it as a variable." On screen, Marcus Webb drifted closer to the silence, chips in one hand, giving a casual wave to the observation cameras with the other. The universe held its breath. Marcus had seen a lot of weird things in his career. He'd seen a nebula that sang opera. He'd watched a black hole spit out a ship that had gone in 200 years ago with the crew somehow alive and very confused. He'd once witnessed a bar fight between two species that existed in different phases of matter, which was both physically impossible and extremely entertaining. But this was new. The silence wasn't just dark. It was the absence of light in a way that made Marcus's brain hurt. Looking at it was like looking at a hole in reality shaped like a thought you couldn't quite remember. It moved, but not through space. It was more like space moved around it, uncomfortable with its presence. "Gerald," Marcus said quietly, his voice crackling over the comm. "You seeing this?" "Unfortunately, yes. My sensors are experiencing what I can only describe as an existential crisis. Also, I'm picking up strange readings." "Strange how?" "Strange like my poetry subroutine just activated and I can't turn it off. I'm currently composing a haiku about the futility of existence." "That's not good." "The darkness consumes. Reality's fabric unravels. We're all going to die." "Okay, that's actually pretty good, but maybe save the poetry for later?" "Not my choice, it's a stress response." Marcus drifted closer. Around him, space was doing weird things. Stars that should have been light years away looked close enough to touch. His suit's readouts were showing numbers that didn't make sense, and at one point he could have sworn he saw his own reflection in the vacuum, which was deeply concerning given that there was nothing to reflect off of. "Marcus, I'm detecting dimensional fractures. Reality is becoming unstable in your immediate vicinity." "Define unstable." "You might briefly cease to exist, or exist in multiple timelines simultaneously, or turn into a theoretical concept. The readings are unclear." "Great. Fantastic. Love that for me." The silence was close now, close enough that Marcus could feel it, if feeling was the right word. It was like standing at the edge of a cliff in the dark, knowing there was a drop but not being able to see it. His instincts, honed by years of dangerous situations, were screaming at him to turn around. Every cell in his body wanted to be anywhere else. Marcus kept going. "You know," he said conversationally, more to keep himself calm than anything else. "Back at the council station, there's probably a betting pool going on how long I last. What do you think the odds are? Against you surviving? Astronomical." "I meant, what do you think people bet?" "Oh, probably 30 seconds. You've been approaching for 2 minutes now, so congratulations, you've already beaten expectations." "Story of my life, Gerald." He was almost at the edge now, the boundary where reality stopped and the silence began. It looked like nothing and everything at the same time, a swirling darkness that pulled at his eyes and made his stomach drop. Marcus took a breath, then another. Then he did the stupidest thing he'd ever done in a career full of stupid things. He stopped, hung there in space, and started talking. "Hey," he said. "Not to be rude, but you're kind of eating the universe and a lot of people are pretty upset about it." Nothing happened. I know, Marcus continued. "You're probably thinking, who's this guy? Why is he bothering me?" Valid questions. I'm Marcus Webb. I'm a human. We're kind of known for bothering things that probably want to be left alone." Still nothing. Just the endless void that hurt to look at. "Look, I get it," Marcus said, and surprised himself by meaning it. "Existence is exhausting, takes a lot of energy just to be, you know? And everyone expects things from you. The universe is big and complicated and full of beings who make noise and have opinions. If I were an all-powerful cosmic entity, I'd probably want to eat everything too, just for some peace and quiet. Gerald's voice was barely a whisper. Marcus, your vitals are spiking, your suit readings are impossible, you should retreat. In a minute. Marcus. Gerald, I'm in the middle of a conversation, it's rude to leave. You're not having a conversation, you're talking to the void. Yeah, well, the void hasn't eaten me yet, so maybe it's listening. Marcus spread his arms, a ridiculous gesture in space, but somehow it felt right. Here's the thing. You're making a mess. And I get that you're probably just trying to go home, or maybe you're hungry, or maybe you're just existing and can't help what you do. But the thing is, there are billions of people out here, living their lives, making bad choices and good choices and just trying to get through the day, and they deserve a chance to keep doing that. The darkness seemed to pulse. Or maybe that was Marcus's imagination. He was definitely running low on oxygen and high on adrenaline and possibly hallucinating. So here's what I'm proposing, Marcus said. Instead of eating everything, maybe we have a chat. Figure out what you need. Because I'm betting, and I'm a guy who knows bad bets, I'm betting you're not evil. You're just lost. And I happen to be very good at finding things. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then everything happened. The silence moved, or spoke, or both. It wasn't sound exactly. It was more like someone had taken all the frequencies Marcus had never heard and played them directly into his brain. It wasn't words, but somehow, impossibly, he understood. The silence was tired. It had been traveling for eons, looking for its home dimension. It existed outside normal reality, a being of pure entropy that had been pulled into this universe by accident during the Big Bang. It had been trying to get back ever since, consuming energy to sustain itself, following a path that it thought led home. It wasn't attacking. It was just so very, very tired of being somewhere it didn't belong. Oh, Marcus said quietly. Oh, buddy, you're not invading. You're just lost. The silence pulsed again, and Marcus felt something that might have been relief or might have been the entity equivalent of finally, someone gets it. Okay, Marcus said. Okay, I can work with this. Gerald, you getting this? I'm getting psychic impressions that violate several laws of thermodynamics, yes. Can you track where it's trying to go? Marcus, I'm a ship AI. I'm not designed for interdimensional navigation. But can you do it? A pause. Then, maybe, if I redirect all processing power and violate my own safety protocols. Also, this is insane. That's the human way, buddy. You in? Against all my better judgment, yes. Marcus looked at the silence, this ancient being that had been trying to go home for longer than most civilizations had existed. All right, how about this? You stop eating stars and I help you find your way back. Deal? The response wasn't words. It was more like a feeling of agreement mixed with suspicion, mixed with what Marcus could only interpret as, are you sure you can do this? Honestly? No idea, Marcus admitted. But I'm pretty good at improvising. And I've got Gerald, who's smarter than both of us. Between the three of us, we'll figure something out. The silence considered this. Marcus could feel it thinking, which was deeply weird. Then, slowly, it pulled back. Just a little. Just enough that the stars it had been about to consume were spared. Gerald, Marcus said, grinning inside his helmet. I think we just became interdimensional travel guides. I would like it noted for the record that this is the most legally binding handshake with an abstract concept in recorded history. Put it on my resume. Back at the council station, 73 species were experiencing collective shock. The monitors showed Marcus Webb still alive, having what appeared to be a pleasant conversation with the thing that had been about to end existence. The silence had stopped moving. The stars had stopped dying. What? Vexthar said slowly, all 6 arms hanging limp. Is happening? Clinara's crystalline structure was pulsing rapidly. According to my readings, Mr. Webb is engaged in what appears to be diplomatic negotiations with the silence, which should be impossible. But then again, My readings also say he briefly didn't exist for 3 seconds, so I'm not trusting my sensors anymore. Did he just save the universe by asking nicely? Ticket squeaked. It appears so, Kleinara chimed. I hate that this worked. On screen, Marcus was floating back toward his ship, giving the silence what appeared to be a friendly salute. The darkness impossibly seemed to wave back. Getting the silence home turned out to be less epic quest and more surprisingly tedious road trip. Marcus was back in his ship. Gerald was running calculations that made his processors hot enough to require cooling system overrides, and the silence was following along like a cosmic puppy that occasionally ate photons when it got distracted. Okay, Gerald said, his voice strained. I've identified approximately 73 dimensional rifts that could potentially lead to the silence's home dimension. 73? Marcus was back in his captain's chair, somehow even more tired than before. Can we narrow that down? I'm trying. The silence is providing sensory data through what I can only describe as aggressive telepathy. It's like getting directions from someone who doesn't understand the concept of left and right, except with dimensions instead of directions. Marcus felt another pulse of communication from the silence. It was apologetic. Apparently, interdimensional navigation wasn't something that translated well into three-dimensional space. It's okay, buddy, Marcus said to the void outside his ship. Gerald gets grumpy, but he's good at his job. We'll figure it out. The silence responded with something that felt like gratitude, mixed with what Marcus was pretty sure was cosmic hunger. Wait, are you hungry? Marcus asked. Like, right now? An affirmative pulse. What do you eat? Besides stars, I mean. The silence sent back a feeling that was basically, I'm not picky, but stars are convenient. Can you eat, I don't know, less important stuff? Like maybe space dust? Asteroids? There's a debris field about 2 light years from here that nobody's using. The silence considered this, then sent back what Marcus interpreted as, that's like asking you to live on celery, but I guess I can try. I mean, I do live on celery sometimes, well, celery and questionable burritos. Point is, it's better than eating inhabited star systems. The silence agreed somewhat reluctantly and changed course toward the debris field. Gerald tracked its movement, noting that it consumed the debris much slower than it had consumed stars, but it seemed to work. Congratulations, Gerald said. You've just put the universe-ending entity on a diet. Add it to the resume, Marcus said, then had to stifle a laugh at the absurdity of his life. The council had been sending increasingly frantic messages, which Marcus had been ignoring because he was busy navigating an ancient cosmic being through space while it learned to eat trash instead of stars. Finally, he answered one. Vexthar's face appeared on screen, and he looked like he'd aged several years in the past few hours. Mr. Webb, status report, please. Oh, hey. Yeah, we're good. Just taking the silence home. Turns out it's not evil, just cosmically displaced and hungry. What, how? I asked nicely. You should try it sometime. You asked, the entity consuming reality, nicely. Yeah, crazy what communication can do, right? Anyway, we're working on finding its home dimension. Gerald's running the numbers. Should have it figured out in, what, Gerald, couple hours? 3.7 hours if the silence stops eating things and distracting me with existential observations about the nature of being. It's very philosophical, Marcus explained to Vexthar. We've had some deep conversations. Did you know it's been conscious for longer than most galaxies have existed? Really puts your problems in perspective. Vexthar's arms all moved in different directions, which Marcus had learned meant the council leader was experiencing multiple conflicting emotions simultaneously. Mr. Webb, I'm receiving reports that the silence has stopped consuming stars and is instead eating, according to our sensors, garbage. Yep, I suggested a diet change, better for everyone involved. You suggested a diet. Look, Vex, buddy, can I call you buddy? Everyone gets hangry, even cosmic entities. The silence was just trying to get home and needed fuel. Now it's eating stuff nobody's using anyway. Win-win. This is the most absurd situation I've encountered in 300 years of service. Yeah, but it's working, so maybe absurd isn't so bad. Vexithar was quiet for a moment, Then he did something Marcus didn't expect. He laughed. It came out as a whistling sound through his breathing tubes, but it was definitely a laugh. "Mr. Webb, you are either the luckiest being in the universe or the craziest, possibly both." "Definitely both," Marcus agreed cheerfully. Over the next few hours, Marcus and Gerald worked with the Silence to navigate through space toward what they hoped was the right dimensional rift. It was a weird sort of cooperation. The Silence would send feelings and impressions about where home felt. Gerald would translate those into coordinates and probabilities, and Marcus would pilot the ship while providing commentary that nobody asked for, but everyone got anyway. "You know," Marcus said at one point, talking to the Silence because the Silence was ironically terrible for his mental health, "I get it. Being somewhere you don't belong. That's kind of been my whole life. Never quite fit in the military. Too much of a disaster for civilian life. Too weird for normal space work. But then I figured out, maybe not fitting in means you can go places other people can't. Maybe being weird is useful." The Silence sent back a feeling of understanding. It had never fit anywhere either. That's what happens when you're a being of entropy in a universe that's trying very hard to maintain order. "Yeah," Marcus said quietly. "We're both kind of cosmic mistakes, aren't we? But we're making it work." The Silence agreed, then sent something else, a feeling of appreciation. In all its eons of existence, wandering through this universe, nobody had tried to understand it. They'd all just tried to fight it or run from it or study it from a distance. Marcus was the first being to actually talk to it like it was a person. Marcus felt something in his chest tighten. "Well," he said, his voice a little rough, "someone once did that for me too. Gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one. Figure I should pass it along." "Marcus," Gerald said quietly, "I'm detecting a dimensional rift ahead. Coordinates match the Silence's impressions. I believe this is it." "You hear that, buddy?" Marcus said. "We found your door home." The Silence pulsed with something that felt like joy mixed with sadness. Joy at going home, sadness at leaving this strange human who decided to help for no reason, except that it was the right thing to do. "Hey," Marcus said, feeling the emotion through their weird connection. "Don't get all emotional on me. You'll mess up my reputation as a heartless salvage operator." The Silence sent back what could only be interpreted as a laugh. Marcus piloted the ship closer to the rift. It looked like a tear in space, edges shimmering with colors that didn't technically exist in normal physics. Through it, Marcus could barely see something else, another place, a dimension where beings like the Silence belonged. "This is it," Marcus said. "Your stop." The Silence moved toward the rift, then paused. It sent back one more communication. A thank you, in feelings that transcended language. Gratitude for being seen, for being heard, for being treated like more than just a threat. And then, unexpectedly, it called Marcus interesting. Marcus laughed. "Yeah, that's what my therapist says too." Before she fired me as a client, the Silence pulsed with what might have been amusement. Then it moved through the rift, its form dissolving into the space between dimensions. For a moment, Marcus felt its presence, ancient, vast, and finally, at peace. Then it was gone. The rift sealed itself, reality knitting back together like it had never been torn. The stars were still there. The universe was still there. Everything was fine. "Gerald," Marcus said quietly, staring at the space where the Silence had been, "did we just make friends with an abstract concept?" "It appears so. I'm adding it to the list of improbable things that have happened to us. It's getting quite long." "Yeah." Marcus felt tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. "Let's go home." "Which home? The station or the ship?" "The ship is home, Gerald. The station's just where we park." The return to the council station was, predictably, chaos. Marcus had barely docked before he was swarmed by what appeared to be every species representative, half the station's security, and at least 3 news crews that he definitely didn't remember authorizing. Everyone wanted to talk to the human who'd saved the universe by being, as one reporter put it, cosmically audacious. Vexthar met him at the airlock with what Marcus now recognized as all 6 arms positioned in a gesture of deep respect. "Mr. Webb," the council leader said formally. On behalf of the 73 member species of the Galactic Council, I would like to... Can I get my parking spot now? Marcus interrupted. Vexthar stopped mid-speech. Yes, you can get your parking spot. Cool. Where's the bathroom? Still need to go from earlier. Several council members made sounds of disbelief. Clinara's crystalline structure pulsed in what might have been a laugh or might have been a malfunction. Mr. Webb, Vexthar tried again. There's a formal ceremony planned. Medals, speeches, a declaration of heroism across all 73 member worlds. Marcus looked at the elaborate setup in the council chambers. There were banners, holographic displays, what appeared to be a choir of Chlorians who'd somehow learned to harmonize despite being sentient gas. It was a lot. How long is this ceremony? Marcus asked. Approximately 4 hours. Nah, I'm good. Mr. Webb, you saved the universe. Yeah, and I'd like to celebrate by taking a nap. Can we speed this up? Vexthar's arms all moved in different directions again. Then he sighed in that whistling way of his. Fine. Abbreviated version. Mr. Webb, you have our eternal gratitude. Your record has been cleared, your debts have been forgiven, and you have unlimited premium parking at all council facilities. And the coffee? And the unlimited station coffee. Perfect. We done? The moon incident has also been erased from all databases per your agreement. Marcus felt something in his chest relax. The one thing he'd been carrying around, the mistake that had defined him for years, was finally gone. He'd get to start fresh. Thanks, he said, and meant it. The silence sent back what could only be interpreted as a laugh. Marcus piloted the ship closer to the rift. It looked like a tear in space, edges shimmering with colors that didn't technically exist in normal physics. Through it, Marcus could barely see something else. Another place, a dimension where beings like the silence belonged. This is it, Marcus said. Your stop. The silence moved toward the rift, then paused. It sent back one more communication. A thank you, in feelings that transcended language. Gratitude for being seen, for being heard, for being treated like more than just a threat. And then, unexpectedly, it called Marcus interesting. Marcus laughed. Yeah, that's what my therapist says too. Before she fired me as a client, the silence pulsed with what might have been amusement. Then it moved through the rift, its form dissolving into the space between dimensions. For a moment, Marcus felt its presence. Ancient, vast, and finally at peace. Then it was gone. The rift sealed itself, reality knitting back together like it had never been torn. The stars were still there. The universe was still there. Everything was fine. Gerald, Marcus said quietly, staring at the space where the silence had been. Did we just make friends with an abstract concept? It appears so. I'm adding it to the list of improbable things that have happened to us. It's getting quite long. Yeah. Marcus felt tired in a way that went beyond physical exhaustion. Let's go home. Which home? The station or the ship? The ship is home, Gerald. The station's just where we park. The return to the council station was predictably chaos. Marcus had barely docked before he was swarmed by what appeared to be every species representative, half the station's security, and at least 3 news crews that he definitely didn't remember authorizing. Everyone wanted to talk to the human who'd saved the universe by being, as one reporter put it, cosmically audacious. Vexithar met him at the airlock with what Marcus now recognized as all 6 arms positioned in a gesture of deep respect. Mr. Webb, the council leader said formally, on behalf of the 73 member species of the Galactic Council, I would like to... Can I get my parking spot now? Marcus interrupted. Vexthar stopped mid-speech. Yes, you can get your parking spot. Cool. Where's the bathroom? Still need to go from earlier. Several council members made sounds of disbelief. Clinara's crystalline structure pulsed in what might have been a laugh or might have been a malfunction. Mr. Webb, Vexthar tried again. There's a formal ceremony planned. Medals, speeches, a declaration of heroism across all 73 member worlds. Marcus looked at the elaborate setup in the council chambers. There were banners, holographic displays, what appeared to be a choir of Chlorians who'd somehow learned to harmonize despite being sentient gas. It was a lot. "How long is this ceremony?" Marcus asked. "Approximately 4 hours. "Nah, I'm good." "Mr. Webb, you saved the universe." "Yeah, and I'd like to celebrate by taking a nap. Can we speed this up?" Vexthar's arms all moved in different directions again. Then he sighed in that whistling way of his. "Fine. Abbreviated version. Mr. Webb, you have our eternal gratitude. Your record has been cleared. Your debts have been forgiven, and you have unlimited premium parking at all council facilities. And the coffee? And the unlimited station coffee. Perfect. We done? The moon incident has also been erased from all databases per your agreement." Marcus felt something in his chest relax. The one thing he'd been carrying around, the mistake that had defined him for years, was finally gone. He'd get to start fresh. "Thanks," he said, and meant it. "Mr. Webb," Clinara chimed, floating forward. "If I may ask, how did you know talking would work?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about the silence, about how it had been lost and scared and trying to get home, about how everyone had assumed it was evil when it was just trying to survive. "I didn't know," he admitted. "But everyone else tried fighting it, and humans, we learned something a long time ago. Sometimes the scariest thing in the universe isn't scary because it wants to hurt you. Sometimes it's scared too. And sometimes all it needs is for someone to listen." "That's surprisingly wise," Vexthar said. "Don't get used to it. I'm mostly stupid decisions and luck." "Yes, well, your stupid decisions saved approximately 17 trillion lives. Add it to the resume." Marcus started to leave, then paused. "Hey, Vex, one more thing." "Yes?" "Next time something weird happens, maybe try talking to it first before you try shooting it. Just a thought." "Noted, Mr. Webb, though I hope there won't be a next time. In this galaxy, there's always a next time." Marcus made his way back to his ship, dodging reporters and well-wishers and at least one species that wanted to make him an honorary member of their planetary government. Gerald had the airlock open and waiting. "Welcome back, hero," Gerald said as Marcus collapsed into his chair. "Don't call me that. Would you prefer savior of the universe? Diplomatic miracle worker? The man who befriended entropy? I'd prefer Marcus." "Fair enough. Marcus, you have 17 new job offers, 43 interview requests, and 1 message from a Rigelian debt collector who apparently didn't get the memo about the forgiveness. Delete all of them. Even the one offering you a teaching position at the Galactic Academy? Especially that one. Can you imagine me trying to teach? I'd have the whole class arrested within a week." "Probably true." Gerald paused. "Marcus, can I ask something?" "Sure. Do you think the silence will be okay?" Marcus looked out at the stars, now safe and shining. "Yeah, I think so. It's home now, where it belongs. That's all anyone really wants, right? To find where they fit." "Have you found where you fit?" "Gerald, I'm a disaster human with a ship held together by spite and expired duct tape. I don't fit anywhere." He grinned. "And that's exactly how I like it." An alert chimed. Incoming transmission, marked urgent. Marcus groaned. "Tell them I'm dead. Solar flare." "Marcus, you can't use that excuse anymore. You're famous now. Everyone knows you're alive." "Fine. Tell them I'm busy." "Busy doing what?" "Busy napping. I just saved the universe. I earned a nap." Gerald displayed the message anyway. It was another crisis. Something about a rogue AI threatening a sector. They needed someone who could handle impossible situations. Marcus looked at the message, then at the stars. Then he did something that surprised even himself. He put the communicator on silent. "Marcus?" Gerald said, surprised. "I said I'm napping. But this is another universe-threatening situation, and there are 73 species out there who can handle it. I'm taking a break." Marcus stretched out in his chair, pulling his jacket over his eyes. "Besides, I believe in them. Someone else can be the hero today." That's remarkably mature of you. Don't worry, I'll be back to making bad decisions tomorrow. But today I'm just going to lie here and appreciate the fact that the universe didn't end and I didn't have to use any expired cheese. About that, Gerald said. I've been meaning to ask about the moon incident. Nope. But Marcus, we had a deal, Gerald. That story died with the database wipe. Let it stay dead. You collapsed a moon using dairy products. The galaxy deserves to know how. The galaxy can wonder. Marcus smiled under his jacket. Besides, a good magician never reveals his secrets. You're not a magician. You're a disaster with a ship. Exactly. And yet here we are, universe saved, parked in a premium spot, with unlimited coffee privileges. Maybe being a disaster isn't so bad. Outside the ship, the Galactic Council was already handling the next crisis. Species were working together, sharing knowledge, trying the diplomatic approach first. Maybe they'd learned something from watching a disaster human talk down a cosmic entity. Or maybe the universe was just having a good day. Either way, Marcus Webb was taking a nap. The financially irresponsible sat quietly in its premium parking spot, systems humming softly. Inside, a human slept, dreaming of stars that didn't die and friends made from entropy. And somewhere, in a dimension beyond normal reality, the silence was home, at peace, occasionally thinking about the strange little human who'd decided to help for no reason except that it was the right thing to do. The universe continued spinning. The stars kept shining. And Gerald, despite his better judgment, initiated the Do Not Disturb protocol and let Marcus sleep. After all, saving the universe was exhausting work, even for disasters, especially for disasters.